And now for our second question, which will go first to Mr. Jim Kingman. Mr. Jim Kingman, what one thing would you change about Rhodes College?
Without a doubt, the one thing that I would change about Rhodes College is the fact that our administration often passes down policies without any sort of student input. And I think that's preposterous. During my freshman year, a policy was enacted which totally changed the social and alcohol policies on campus without any form of student input. This happened between a Wednesday and a Thursday. This was a notice from the administration, not a process of negotiation. When they were forming their policies, they never once consulted a student. But this was a direct effect on each of our students. Yes, they're glad to say, oh, let's make a nice layer, let's throw a lot of money on it. Let's put the students in charge of designing it. And you know, we did a pretty good job. Don't you think that we can apply the same sort of standards to the policies that we shape? Absolutely, we can take what the administration is trying to accomplish, look at that. But if it's a policy that directly affects students, I feel like, and the students have no ownership in that type of policy, that's a huge mistake on the part of the administration. The student government's job is to stand between the administration and the student body. This means, yes, to disseminate policies from the administration to the student body to make sure that they're clear of what everything is. But it's also a two-way street. We need to also be able to stand to the administration and express our concerns and be an active part of shaping the policies that affect our day-to-day lives. It really doesn't matter to the administration if more than 20 people can show up at a fraternity house. It really doesn't matter. So how come it's them that can so exclusively determine that type of decision that each of us can make? You know, I understand keeping us safe, I understand keeping us from being a liability, but that is so symbolic of the type of relationship that the administration has with the student body. You know, well-intentioned, that's great, but if it's ineffective leadership and it's bad practical methods, there's a serious problem there. I stand to change that. Thank you.
Now going from left to right, Ms. Jill Carr, 1 minute for rebuttal or other comments.
I also agree that it was irresponsible of the administration to pass down that decision.
Didn't I answer that question? I sit on a throne of lies. Didn't I just say? Let me go to Colin Cox. My fault. I apologize. It is my. It's not Jill's fault. It's my fault. I apologize.
I would agree with Jim in that the administration is stagnated sometimes, but you have to go in there and you have to have an open mind and you have to understand that there's a generational gap and the way they do things is very different from the way that we do things. And so you have to go in there and you have to tell them why the issue is relevant to the student body and say, look, you know, this issue is relevant to us, we're going to do what it takes, but you need to meet us where we are today and come up to 2008. Thank you.
Mr. Ben Lyon.
Are we sure? No, we're not sure.
Okay, I think Jim has hit a good issue here, but here's what, again, makes us different. I'm the only candidate who so far stood up and said I'm willing to fight for these issues. If any of you has ever dealt with the administration, I don't even need to say it. It's rigid, it's inflexible, and it's not listening. So, there are certain administrators who will listen to us. They need to be communicated with. We need to be willing to say, we're not here to pander, we're not here to negotiate. I'm here to represent 1,600 paying customers who are upset and want to see something happen. We are the paying customers, and we will be heard. So if we have to step on toes to make that happen, so be it. We need to expedite the process, and you need a leader who's willing to say, I'm not going to get the runaround. It's time for this to change. Let's make it happen immediately. No more being pushed around. We are pushed around, absolutely. And if the RSG president cannot stand up, if we buckle, this student body will not be heard. Again, I promise to do that. I'm willing to do that, and I look forward to instituting the real changes that will come about by doing that. Again, thank you.
Now, Ms. Jill Carr.
Sorry about that confusion there, guys. I also would like to agree with Jim that that decision was handed down from the administration in a very irresponsible manner. I do differ a little bit from my fellow candidates on the way that I deal with the administration, though. And a lot of that stems from the extensive experience that I have as an RSG executive. I've spent a lot of time this year putting time into relationships with the administration that I can use to leverage into making positive change for students here on campus. It's great to go in there with great ideas But if you go in with your guns out, you're not going to get anywhere with the administration. You have to come in and work with them, and you have to compromise. I've already put myself in a position where I have respect and a great relationship with many of the important administrators on campus. I look forward to being able to use those relationships as student government president to work for you. We can get a lot more done with them when we force them to compromise, but compromising and not giving in because they're afraid of anything that we're going to do to them or causing riots. Thank you.
Now for our third question, which I think will go to Colin Cox. Am I correct? It's maybe the last time they ask me to moderate this. Okay, the third question. Speaking of the administration, what kind of relationship would you have with the administration? What about students? What happens, this is the important one, what happens when the wishes of these two groups conflict? Mr. Colin Cox.
Well, as RSG president, you have to pick out relative issues that are facing the campus at the time. You know, those being either free speech policy, student gatherings, or just to increase school spirit at the same time. Go into the office of Carol Casey, and you say, this is what students want on campus. Now, if they shake their heads and they say, we already have that, or, well, I don't think that's going to be possible. You look at that and you go, okay, how can I present that to them to make them accept it, or, you know, just in general. But basically what you need to understand when working with the administration is they're not really susceptible to change. But what you can do is you keep arguing the point, you remind them that support the students, you get people to support you, like your fellow senators, Greek houses, non-Greeks, and then you just go back in and keep fighting. Thank you.
First rebuttal from Ms. Jill Carr.
I'm actually really glad that this question came next because it gives me the opportunity to expand on my stance on sort of how to deal with the administration. I think that it's important that that you guys recognize that my attitude is that I will not waver on student issues, but I'm willing to invest time into making sure that the administration understands our issues and wants to work with us, and wants to work with us for future issues. But I think it's important that I restate this for everyone here, that I do not plan to compromise my principles or the wishes of students in any way for the administration. I'm just interested in creating positive avenues in which to deal with them and to work with them because I'm an outcome-based candidate. I think it's most important that we get the outcomes that we're looking for, even if maybe it takes a little longer to get there, but to use the best routes possible. Thank you.
Mr. Jim Kingman.
This is a good question, and I think it also goes back to experience. My relationship with the administration would not be one of immediate antagonism, not at all. However, I think by my experience, I've shown that for example, as the president of the allocations board, I had numerous occasions where an administrator would come when I was working to change something. An administrator would give her suggestions or his suggestions, and my response would be, thank you for your suggestion, but we're not going to do it that way. I'm the only one that stands with the experience of listening to the administration, hearing where they're coming from, but also being able to say, we're going to change it, we're going to do it differently, we're going to take student initiative on this because this is an issue that we handle. I think when the interests of the administration, the interests of the students conflict, it's the job of the student government president to always side on the side of the students and to represent their issues to the administration. Thank you.
Finally, Mr. Ben Ryan.
Okay, let me make this one thing clear. I'm not cool with Molotov cocktails and revolution, but what I am cool with is understanding that we can have personal relationships with administrators that are not violent or antagonistic, but we also need to understand that when you deal with it as a body that is trained and basked in red tape, you do need to be very firm, not antagonistic. I think if I had a relationship with the administration as RSG president, it would be functional. And yes, it would be siding always on the side of the student body. And there's actually not one administrator I don't personally like. But as a unit, we need to also stand together because they are. And they're going to not listen to us as often as they can. They have their own ideas that they want to put forward. They want to tell us how to make our campus climate. They want to tell us how to act and how to look when we have prospective students. We can stand against that united and strong in a way that is diplomatic. Those who know me know I was training in my mother's womb to be a diplomat. So I'm not going to be out here being a revolutionary. We need a functional relationship with the administration that will side with the students. I promise you that. Thank you.